Hey guys, welcome back to Troy's Garage. My name's Troy, and today we're working on Mama's buggy. It's in pretty bad need of front brakes. It's been a little while since I paid attention to that, and she never says anything to me about it until it's like, why is the steering wheel shaking so bad when I hit the brakes? It's like, why didn't you tell me about that sooner? Anyway, here we are. It is a 2015 Hyundai Sonata Limited. Let's break out the parts that we got for this project and get the front end up in the air, the back tires blocked, locked, whatever. Safety first, and let's get started. Let's just do a quick brake job and we'll take you along for the ride, show you how I do it. Ordered the parts from Amazon. They showed up. Let's do this. I have the emergency brake set, and it's just time to get this thing up onto jack stands so that we can take the wheels off and get exposed the brakes that we need to work on. We're going to cheat just a little bit and use air tools to do this job. You can do it with regular hand tools, and I will show you a list of all the tools that you need to do the front brakes, rotors, and pads on a Hyundai Sonata within these model years, and I'll put that on the screen there so that you can see it. Parts will be listed down below. Those are affiliate links. That helps me out. When you make a purchase, it doesn't cost you anything extra, and I get a tiny kickback for sending Amazon the business. So I appreciate you using those links. If this video is helpful, please like it. You can always show me some love by using that super thanks button down there at the bottom. Maybe it's over here. It's over here. It's over here. Somewhere. You'll find it if you're motivated enough. So if this helps you, a brake job at a mechanic shop can be anywhere from $100 up to $250 I've seen. Doing this yourself, I believe I paid about $65 for the parts that we see there. I'll put it on the screen. I have to look it up. It's been a hot minute since I placed the order, so can't remember honestly. Okay, so now that we've got the car up on jack stands, it's safe and secure. Let's take a look at the parts we're gonna, or not the parts, let's take a look at the tools we're gonna need for this job. And then we'll get started by pulling off the wheels. As for the tools you need for this job, you need a pry bar, or a small pry bar, or a flathead screwdriver to get that center cap off to expose the lug nuts. The lug nuts are a 21 millimeter. And I'm using an air impact tool, so you can use that or the lug nut wrench that comes with your car. To take the caliper off, you need a 14 millimeter box end wrench or socket. We used a box end wrench for ours. To get the caliper bracket off, we need a 17 millimeter. I again used a box end wrench, and I used a hammer to tap on that to get it to break those free. And then, once the caliper is free, using the 14 millimeter, you use a bungee cord to hold that up so you're not putting pressure on the brake line. To remove the two screws that hold the rotor in place, you're going to use an impact screw removal tool. That's what I ended up having to use. I could have possibly gotten away with just using a really big screwdriver. I like to save my wrists using tools wherever possible. Leave a link down below to that. That is super handy. To compress the caliper, just using a C-clamp and one of the old pads to clamp against to get that to compress back down, pushes fluid back up into the master cylinder. And then a shop light. You also need a floor jack and jack stands, and I still have the jack stands under there. I opted to go with the drilled and slotted rotors. It's kind of an upgrade, just helps with overheating and that sort of thing. Just a little bit of an upgrade, nothing special. I'll leave links for both the slotted and drilled rotor that I got, as well as the standard like OEM style of just the dinner plate style in the description down below. 21 millimeter to take the lug nuts off. You can see how much faster power tools are. Yeah, baby. of the Utah rust. Next step is to use a box end wrench or a socket. 14 millimeter is what you need for this. You're taking off the bolts that hold the rotor assembly on. So we got to take that off. Without smashing your knuckles, hopefully. And you're going to take that bolt clear out. And the bottom one too, there's two of them there. Oh, actually, let's put that bolt back in for 1 second while we loosen that one. Sometimes that'll just pop loose, but sometimes you gotta work with it. Ow, freak! There we go. Take out the bottom and the top. Now we're going to need a bungee cord or something to support this. You don't want the weight of the caliper pulling on your rubber line. That creates weak spots in it and eventually it will pop, and you do not want that. You'll have no brakes whatsoever. So when we pull this off, we'll support it up so that no tension is on that. Alright, and just be sure you support that so that you're not putting undue tension on that rubber line. And I just go up through like that so I know it's not going to slip off. And then we hook it to the strut up top. There's a spring up in there, and just hooking it to that to support it, like so. Now that's up out of the way, we can get busy on the rest of this. Also, if you're not replacing the rotor itself, you don't have to do this next step. You can just pull the pads off of this, and I'll leave a link on the screen and down in the description in the chapters for where to skip to get to that section. But we're replacing this, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull the pads out now so that step is done, and then we'll get to removing the rotor itself so we can replace that. Alright, to remove this mounting bracket, you just whack it really hard with a hammer. That's actually not true, don't do that. You're going to need a 17 millimeter box end wrench or socket. And I like to put my wrench on it and then hit it with the hammer up in that section right there like that, so that I don't miss. And anyway, you'll see. That little groove right there catches the hammer, but if you use this part right there, you run less risk of it slipping off. Just a couple light taps like that, and it loosens it. Obviously with power tools, it just knocks it free anyway. And I have a ratchet box end wrench, so it's bouncing up with each hit. I think that one got it. A couple more whacks. Yep, there it goes. And then just remove those, and then the bracket will come off. And thanks to our Utah salt, my bolts are pretty rusty. We're going to treat those with a little bit of rust preventative stuff, penetrating lubricant before we put them back in, just to give them a little longevity and make it easier to take apart next time if we ever need to do this again. Probably won't. This is going to be a long-term fix for the rotors themselves. But you can see that rust on that bottom one. It's pretty bad. That's why it was hard enough to knock through. Alright, set that aside for now. We're going to be reinstalling that in just a minute. Alright, and this rotor has two screws through it that hold it in place. I can tell that nobody's been in here before because those are put on by the manufacturing. When it goes down the assembly line, they put those screws in to hold the rotor in place while it's going down the line, because the wheels are basically the last thing they put on a vehicle before it rolls off assembly line. So we got to bust those things free. Those are going to be a bugger because of the rust. So that's going to be fun. But I have a specialty tool to help me knock those free. Just takes a tap of a hammer and basically it breaks it free. So let me show you that tool real quick. If you ever need one of these, they're pretty handy to have. So this is a tool that you probably hope you never need, but you're really glad you have if you do need it. So basically it comes in multiple size, flathead and Phillips, and the bits just go in there obviously. And when you whack the end of this with a hammer, it hammers in and twists to the off position with each tap. So you don't want to get all sorts of crazy with it, but just give it some taps and eventually it works kind of like a hammer drill almost, or like an impact I should say. Similar concept, just using with a hand tool so that you don't strip the screw. If you strip the screw, you got bigger problems. You're going to be drilling it out, and you can do it, but this is going to save that problem. Taking one of the bits and seeing which size I need. That one's a little bit loose. Let's see if the other one's a tighter fit. Oh yeah, that's a perfect fit. No wobble or anything. So let's get it inserted in the tool and whack it with a hammer and see if we can bust this loose. There it goes. It's turning. Yep, there it goes. Oh, and then I drop. Perfect. Alright, so that one's loose. Let's just take him all the way out so he's gone. More rust, imagine that. Alright, let's turn this so that the other one's at the top, just so we can see what we're doing here. And then let's make sure we're going the right direction. Oh, that one popped free. That one probably could have done by hand without the tool. Came out with one tap. But this is a really handy tool. I'll leave a link down below to this guy as well. Pretty handy. When you need it, you need it. Now that that's loose, we should be able to just whack it with a hammer to break it free. It's still stuck on there real good. It's going to be just rust holding it in place at this point. And because we're replacing this, it's okay to hit it with a hammer. If you're not replacing these, then you do not want to whack that with a hammer. You're denting the back where the caliper hits, or the brake pad hits I should say. And that would be a bad take. With enough wax, it'll come out. But wow, what a rusty mess. Before you compress the caliper back down, you want to, let's see if I can get the hood open one-handed here. You want to remove the lid to your brake master booster. That will relieve the pressure and make it easier on yourself so that fluid can come back up. You also don't want to top that off before you compress, because it's actually pushing the fluid back into the reservoir. And if you top it off, compress them, then it'll overflow and make a big mess. So just take the lid off. We'll compress the caliper. We're going to do the same thing to this other side when we get to that point, and then we'll seal that back up when we're done. Make sure you remember to put that cap back on. I leave the hood up anytime I do something like that, so I remember to do that. In order to compress the caliper back down so that the new pads will fit, you just need a C-clamp and one of the old pads to compress that down. I'll show you how that works. Alright, so how you do this is you just take your pad and you set it back in place on the the caliper itself. And then you take your C-clamp, so open it up so it'll fit, and drop your pad because that helps with your low back pain, so that's great. Just hold that in place while you put this over the top. You don't want to pinch your fitting where that goes in the back, and then just slowly start clamping down on this. You want to make sure it's applying even pressure as best as possible to push that piston straight down. But with the lid off, you know, you just go a little bit at a time, and it's fairly easy to push in. If it starts getting real hard to push in and it's still not all the way in, you know something's binding up or something's not quite right. If we were watching that reservoir, you'd probably see the fluid rising in it as we do this. You should hardly ever have to add fluid to your brake system. If you're adding fluid quite a bit, you have a leak somewhere, and that's a problem. Alright, that's compressed all the way down. I let it just sit so that the pressure equalizes, so that when you remove the clamp, it doesn't push back at all. You want to have as much room in there as possible. Makes reassembly easy. And then just take your clamp back off and your pad off, and that should stay compressed down so that the new pads will fit in there. And because we live in Utah and they put salt on the road, so if you're in one of the rust belt states or whatever with lots of rust, you'll want to do this as well. But I'm just going to do a basic cleanup with kind of a little wire brush and get some of that rust off of there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of grease to the backside of that, just a tiny little bit, just a little bit to kind of cover that surface. Alright, I applied some high temperature grease, a little dab on my finger, and rubbed it all over the surface of that. I'm now going to take a shop towel and wipe that off. So if you're doing this step, make sure you wipe off as much of that as you possibly can. A greased up brake caliper will not stop you. So you're doing this part at your own risk. In fact, you're doing the whole thing at your own risk. But anyway, just be smart. Don't put grease on your dinner plates. And I'm just going to wipe off as much of this as I can get off. It's basically just to treat the surface so that it will stop rusting, and that's it. So remove as much as you can. And this is obviously an optional step. You don't have to do this. It just makes removal next time easier if you ever need to get back in there. That's how much grease came off after wiping it down. That was a new rag before I started. Now, turning our attention to the new rotors. They ship from the factory with basically a light oiled surface so that they don't flash rust in shipping. You just take some brake clean and spray those off on both surfaces so that it removes any of that, and then we're ready to install this. Alright, I didn't show myself spraying this off, but I assure you that I did, because safety first. Alright, I am going to line up the two screw holes. But, oh, wait a minute, what the? No way. No way, no way, no way, no way. So, remember when I said drilled and slotted was an upgrade? Well, it would be if they had sent me the right part. I think what they did is they sent me the ones that are for the Sonata that has the electric emergency brake, which those are just slightly different than the model I've got. So, the O'Reilly's to the rescue. The problem with the drilled and slotted one, if I can do this with my left hand, they are bigger around diameter wise by a good 1/4 inch on each side, making it about a 1/2 inch too wide. And that will not work with that mounting setup. So let's see if this one is a match for this one. Yep, O'Reilly's nailed it. That's the right part. Let's get this thing put on. I was hoping to do the drilled and slotted, but that's clearly not an option. Those will be returned. we'll just go with the standard. It'll be fine. Okay, before we were so rudely interrupted with the wrong part, we're right back to where we were before. I sprayed this off with brake clean and ready to reinstall. There we go. And I am not going to put those back in because honestly I don't care. It'll be fine. Everything's fine. Everything is going to be alright. Everything going to be alright. Everything. And installing is in the exact opposite order of... Sorry, my knee's right in the road. I just peeked at the camera. If you can get the holes to line up, it is helpful. And I am really struggling. I'm on the struggle bus today. Let's go. Maybe we can get the bottom one to line up. Okay, there we go. Jeez, that took way longer than it should have. Make sure we tighten those things down pretty good. Go righty-tighty. I'm going to give a couple more ugga-duggas on that to make sure it's tight. You definitely don't want loose brakes. You picked a fine time to leave me loose wheel. Don't need anything like that going on. Yep. Like that. Now, pads. These just fit into the little groovy slots in the back. Maybe the indicator tab goes to the bottom. Kind of like so. You shouldn't have to whack on that very hard. It should just slip right in there. Mine was being difficult. And then we take our bungee cord out of the picture. Be sure and take it off your spring and get it out of the picture because you don't need it anymore. And then because we pre-compressed this, this should just slip into place like so. And we find our bolts wherever they went. We just use these ones. Oh, I need my wrench too. There it is. And these ones are a little easier to line up because you can see where they're at. There it goes. We're just going to get that one finger tight for now. Put the bottom one in as well. Easy to line up once you have the top one lined up. It's just, it swings on that pivot until it lines up completely. Make sure we're going righty-tighty. On the passenger side, you're pulling up to tighten. Make sure we're good and tight. I'm sure there's probably torque specs, but you just want to make sure they're good and tight. Yep, like that. And with that, you get your wheel put back on and the brakes are done on the one side. Rinse and repeat for the other side and you've done your brakes. Also remember that as you go to drive for the first time after doing brakes, there's going to be some gap in there. So before you start moving, in fact before you even take it off the jack stands, I like to start the car and then compress the brake pedal several times until the brakes actually engage and build enough pressure to essentially stop you. You want to be able to stop. That's what we're up against. Get the other side dialed in, and we should be good to go. Everything spins freely. Good to go. I'm gonna get the wheel put on, swap the other side, and then we'll have a chat. There. I need to put the cap back on. I left the hood up so that I would remember to do that. And then this job is done. But thanks for following along, guys. This was a 2015 Hyundai Sonata Limited with the manual brake, manual emergency brake. Apparently that matters when ordering parts. I'll get that updated in the link down below, so all the parts down there are correct, and I will confirm that and not have to deny. Confirm nor deny. I won't do either. Anyway, this is Troy's Garage. I hope that I earned a thumbs up from you today, as well as a subscribe. We work on lots of random things. I work on neighbor vehicles, that sort of thing. I'm not running a full-blown shop. I work out of my house, out of my garage, but I'm also restoring a couple of old trucks, and so if you're into that sort of thing, subscribe. Appreciate that, and well, hope to see you in the next video real soon. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.